Our next question is around the state's 2023 budget. So right now it includes $150 million for mental health within schools. Do you believe that is an appropriate amount? And what do you want to see done with those funds in DPSCD?
In terms of mental health, if we were to compartmentalize the segments of your question, 38% of the students in high school have challenges around mental health issues or instability. And yet we don't, and the amount of suicide that occurs has continued to increase every year. So the amount of support that we're providing for that population of individuals is not adequate. And so I fully support investing in having mental health services available, not just for the individual, but also training opportunities so that counselors as well as students be able to identify, for example, symptoms that may lead to suicide ideation, and be able to identify that and be able to bring that to attention of a counselor or an instructor so that an intervention could occur for that particular student. Feeling comfortable and trusting in the environment that if I see that my best buddy is struggling, that I can bring that to someone's attention if they don't have the ability to bring that to attention for themselves. I really am passionate about creating health hubs for each of the hub districts in DPSCD. There's 12 hubs. That you have physical health, mental health, you have dental, you have social work, and you have a parent advocate or a family advocate. And that these services are available not only for children or the resident or the individual enrolled in DPS, but their siblings, whether they're a member of DPS or not, and whatever adult figure that is in the home for them, that they all have access to these services so that we can try to minimize, if not eradicate, some of the external challenges that children have to deal with before they begin the learning experience.
I believe that currently, based on what we have been seeing because of COVID, the trauma of COVID, a pandemic, being at home, as well as death and dying rates, illness rates, there was quite a bit of reported mental health issues from families. And so that money was put in the budget, whereas before it wasn't there at all. And that is due to the fact that now the district has COVID dollars and specific money has to be allocated to mental health. So finding mental health counselors, putting them in school buildings, nurses, as well as mental health professionals based on their salary rates, because most of them were vendored out. They were not necessarily our own employees, but we did hire school psychologists, school mental health, trauma, specifically coaches. And so that is there, but we also know that that could be fluid. That amount could be fluid, and we are prepared to revisit it should more money be required in that area. But as you can probably already know, that those mental health issues driven by the community, driven by parents, is something that was brought to our attention, and that money was put in that space to make sure that every child, every family has access. Suicide, of course, was number one that came up in the interviews from parents. And so now we're hoping that that money will take care of that, but if more money is needed, it will be allocated.
Oh, it's definitely a great investment. Mental health is something that's tremendously important. We're always asked about, well, why are students absent? There's a number of reasons why students are absent. Our mental health and wellness is key, and so we have to make investments. What I would like to see with that money, first and foremost, is for parents, students, and administration to work together to see who are the experts who have implemented successful health and wellness, mental health and wellness services in their schools and in their districts, right? Some of us, we're not that expert. So one, we want to make sure we evaluate who the expert is, determine whether or not there's a specific curriculum that can go from pre-K all the way to 12 and implement that across the district, right? So there's learning and knowledge that is important to have for a classroom. Aside from that, what are there other resources that are successful in our district of organizations that exist for health and human services that can also be invested in to provide wraparound support outside of the classroom, not only for the youth, but also to families. So again, this investment is key and it's important that we support our youth and our children, not only with just the academics, but the whole person and well-being. And so again, let's start with the experts. Let's see what's working well in other districts in Michigan, what makes sense across the country. Come together as a community with youth, our administrators, as well as parents and caregivers and say, this is what we want for our youth and build that forward.
Definitely.
Thank you for the question. I believe we could always get more funds, but I'm grateful for that we're getting. Okay, that's number one. Number two is there's also a grant that we received for mental health facilitation that we're going to be utilizing as well. So that's two instances. And then number three, the IDA will give funds for special education to have mental health assistance. So that's three avenues. And I don't even know what we have off the cuff for general ed funding, but that's three different things. So I'm going to utilize it as best I can. I think that what the governor has done is humongous, and it's going to help us immensely in being able to get additional mental health services. That's key to not only the special ed population, but the general ed population, the homeless, which is a great percentage of students in our district, that every night go home to somewhere that's not home, okay? That every morning wake up to breakfast when they're not sure if they're gonna get it the next day, okay? So I don't want to forget the homeless population. So they're number one on my list for being funded, and then the special ed and general ed population. I don't think you really asked me, do I agree with it, but you asked me what would I do with it. So those are just a few other things that I would do. I've seen enough of this nonsense where everybody has mental health issues. And don't forget the teachers, okay? Don't forget those that are having emotional trauma and need to get past it, okay? So we all could use a little bit of it, but definitely our students who are being readied to be our future. So that's my answer.
When you talk about counselors and the ratio of counselors to students is too high. We have so many problems in our community, and these problems that are in the community, in the family, and with individual students, individual people, they need help. They need to be able to have someone to talk to. And so I do believe in having more counselor staff as well as other support staff like social workers and people like that. We have to have them, particularly, I think this pandemic has pointed out the need to have more social services for our students. And that would include counselors and social workers and other therapists. So whoever we need, that's what we need to have. Increased. It has to be increased because there's just too much going on. I think you guys are in the middle of being students or just former students, so you have a better sense than me. But I am fully aware that the emotional situation with our community is very high. And what I'm saying specifically is that our youth are having a psychological and emotional problems. Some of this is because of the pandemic. The pandemic has just exacerbated
the issues that people are having. And other issues that they're having, which would come with, with being teenagers and having one difficulty or one type or another, we don't have enough. That would be my answer. We definitely do not have enough. In fact, the elementary should have far fewer excuse me, I'm saying it wrong, far more counselor to student ratio. And the reason for that is usually by the 4th grade, many people who are thinking about dropping out, that's the grade that people begin to start thinking about dropping out of school. It may not be at the conscious level, but at the subconscious level. And so we need to catch our people as much as we can, as early as we can. The earlier, the better. So we need intervention services and we need prevention services. That's my short answer, I think.